So, Thecia, welcome to Living Free in Tennessee.
Thank you for having me.
It's only taken me like 7 years to learn how to say your name.
I answer to anything, and that's
I
the
just
truth.
remember you were at my spring workshop last year, sitting here going, no, it's Thecia, Thecia. And I'm like, oh, I hope I got it this time. Anyway, so I'm going to laugh if I got it wrong again. But uh, we had called you so many different things by just seeing that name spelled. So let's start there.
Uh-huh.
Thecia Ellis, who are you and how did you end up like on this podcast from wherever you started in life?
Oh man. Well, I don't want to go back too far, but I think when we first moved out to our property here, we're on a 40-acre property in northeast Oklahoma. I was trying to learn how to homestead, and believe it or not, my ex-husband contacted me and goes, I have a podcast you need to listen to. And it was, of course, it was Jack Spirko. And I started listening to him. And then I started listening to you from the very beginning, as soon as you started doing a podcast and stuff. So, and I have turned into a podcast fanatic. I listen to so many of them, and I'm always wanting to learn. Always wanting to see what I can get into, and I just really enjoy it. But yeah, I've learned a lot, but I've got a lot more to learn.
Well, we all have a lot more to learn. I was actually looking at this the other day. A friend of mine put this thing out yesterday. Oh, it was John Bush. He was like, there's this thing that happens in the stock market where you like have the lows and the highs, and when things are low, like when something dips down to its close to its true value, it'll sit there and kind of go up and down a little bit, and then something will happen and it'll spike up to this new high, and then it'll run up against the ceiling where it's probably not going to go over that, and then it'll go up and down at that level, and then sometimes it dips back down. And he said, that's how my business works. I'll be doing really my business will be going along. It's pretty cool, whatever. And all of a sudden I'll do something or something will happen and it'll spike me up in popularity. And then I'll have these ups and downs and I might spike back down as I realize that operationally I'm not ready for this. And then what I have to do is improve me so that the systems work better. So I'm a better leader. And I thought, that's true in life too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's I don't know. That's not it has nothing to do really with what we're talking about, but it kind of does, because your topic today is sort of lessons learned or the power of persistence, and you are a very persistent person.
Yes. Yes.
So let's start about like how, you mentioned in your bio that you went backwards for several years. What did you mean by that?
My husband and I, we got together in the year 2000, and we ended up getting married in 2006. And when we were dating, he had a lake lot and a camper on the lake. He had pontoon boats and a fishing boat, and we went fishing and camping and hunting and just had a wonderful time. And then not too long after we were married, he had a couple events happen in his life, and he went to a huge, deep, terrible depression, like to the point I was afraid to leave the room at some time. I was afraid I'd come back and find him dead. And so we ended up losing the lake lot. I've got a bunch of dead boats out here on the property here now. We recently sold rent houses for $7,500 a piece because he just let them fall apart. So the house that we were living in town was falling apart. And so I decided that since my name was on the property, this was property that we inherited from his dad when he passed. And my name was on the camper that we had just bought. And that's the only thing my name was on, is like, this is where my focus is going to be. But I'm from an era that we have always been taught that the men run the family. The men, not necessarily in a bad way, but if things need to be fixed, you can always count on your husband to bring in the food, do what it takes to make everything right in your family. And Tom has not been able to do that for several years. And I kept waiting for him to get better, kept waiting for him to take back over the family, and he just didn't. And we lived in a camper for over 7.5 years. And we ended up finally with some water and stuff in the barn, and that's where I'm taking a shower now, but that's another point. But basically we lived in a camper for that long with no running water. and no sewage or anything like that. So I was hauling water up from we have a vineyard, so I was hauling water up from the vineyard. At first, we were hauling dishes and laundry and stuff into town every day to the house that we had in town that was falling apart. Do a load of laundry, do a load of dishes, and take showers, and then head back out here. And we did that for a couple of years, and before we finally got a bathroom in the barn and was able to actually function. And I did dishes and laundry in the barn for 2 or 3 years or so, and I could do that as long as it stayed above freezing. So I kind of got tired of going backward. He was also in charge of the bills, and we almost lost even the property. And so I kind of, and everybody says, well, why don't you put your foot down? And you go, yeah, then what are you going to do? Because he could not be moved. I always sing that song in my head whenever he's stubborn. I shall not be moved. And that's him. That's my husband. So
well, I think about, like, there's this point in toddlerdom where you tell your toddler, hey, we're going to go, like, you need to go pick up your toys. And they just learned this really cool new word. It's no.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point, like, I've had this discussion with both of my nieces where I'm like, okay, so me just telling you to do this thing doesn't work anymore. And if I don't find a different way, the only thing I can do to make you do that is to physically take your hands in my hands and have you pick up the things and put them away. And that's not necessarily the best solution. That doesn't really get me anywhere. And so it almost sounds like that's the same sort of thing where if he's like, I'm not going to do it, then he's not going to do it. And that's the way it is.
And he was smart enough not to say no, though. He would just put it off. That joke is like, my wife is mad at me because I still haven't done the thing she asked me to do 6 months ago, and that's kind of what that works out.
Yeah. So when was the moment when you were like, you know what, enough waiting?
When I found out we almost lost the property. Yeah. I'm strong-willed and stuff, but I had to overcome the mental thing of, you know what, you can't do it, so I'm doing it. And if you don't like it, you can leave. That's what it really did come down to. And I had to really mean it before I said it. But I had to get to the psychological point where I don't just say, don't like it, get out of here. I had to really mean it before I did it. And it hurt him. It hurt him quite a bit. But I couldn't. By then we had custody of my granddaughter, and I had somebody else I had to take care of, and I couldn't care whether it hurt him so much anymore, Yeah.
So one day you were like, okay, we're about to lose the land, and the only person who's ready to take action to make a better life is me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make that better life for me and my grandchild and hopefully my husband. And I'm going to have to tell him, this is what we're doing. And if he says no, I'm doing it anyway. And he can make whatever decision he makes from there. So you set a boundary with that one, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And boundaries hurt, guys, but boundaries do bring clarity too. Farmish just kind of saying, I had to really mean it before I said it. Yep. That's a very big thing. So you're still in the camper?
No, no. I'm
in the camper. You had a grandchild to take care of. What happened? What did you build? So you were like, low point. What did you build?
Well, one of the things that Tom did is we bought I kept trying to train myself to say mobile home. It's a trailer house. We bought it for $2,500, and it actually sat for 3 years. Before I took over and said that too. And so, we are living in the trailer house. I've got heat, I've got air, I've got water and stuff like that. But right now I'm trying to remodel my bathroom. I'm trying to get all.
You're in the middle of a remodel of your bathroom.
Oh man, I have been so distraught a few times. And I'm thinking, what have I
totally
thought?
Relate.
Oh yeah. I've been listening to what you've been doing too. And I thought, well, my biggest mistake was I thought I would love to have a bigger shower. So all we have to do is just move this one wall over. I'm an idiot. You don't just move walls. There's electricity wires going through them. There was vent pipes going through walls and stuff. And then so I was really lamenting that. And then when I looked at the floor, we took well, what was holding the toilet up was 2 pieces of plywood. And
Yeah.
we would take them off, and literally there was a whole 2 foot by 2 foot that and the plywood was beginning to sink through it too. So we were going to have to replace the flooring anyway. So might as well make what I want while I'm at it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So I ripped my bathroom apart probably around the same time you ripped yours apart.
Oh no, I started long before you did.
Okay. So, and the difference is I had money set aside to pay people to do stuff for me that I could do myself. And I would do it wrong 4 times before I did it right. I would have to put it in and rip it out and you're doing it all yourself, right?
Yeah, I tried to hire people. I tried to hire someone to come in and do some electric work in here. And it's because it's a trailer house. People don't want to be responsible for what happens in a trailer house. I tried to hire somebody to put a wood stove in my house, and they're going, no, we're not going to do that either. And I've tried to hire people, but they're just not willing to do it. And I'm thinking, well, I have an option. I can either fall through the floor. I guess I can figure out how to do it myself.
Yeah. And that is a place where a lot of us end up for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's that reason. Sometimes it's your location. Like there is a workman's tax for anybody to come work at my house, except for people in my immediate network who now who I know, but it's taken me years to find these people. When I first got here, it was, $200 added on top every day for them to drive here.
Goodness, yeah.
For anything. And so it was like, okay, so my choice is pay way more than I want to for whatever, or frustrate the crap out of myself learning how to do it. And I've made different decisions at different times with that, right? Because sometimes I'm like, I'll just pay the stupid money and get the stupid things done. And other times I just do it myself. In the case of my bathroom, I was lucky that we had people willing to come over and put in new floor joists, because I ran into something like you did where it was like, wow, that tub was just going to go straight down. Luckily, it was only going to fall about 2 inches.
Yeah. Yeah, this would have been about a 45-inch drop.
Yeah, that would be worse.
Yeah.
And the toilet would break when it hit, so that would be no fun.
Yep.
And then somebody's going to get cut where you don't want to get cut. Okay, so you spent a couple of years pretty sick yourself, though. And what caused that, and how did that impact your timeline?
I'm believing as time goes on, I think there was a couple of factors. It probably was a tick bite. The doctors never told me it was alpha-gal, but I think you were the one that told me you thought it was alpha-gal. We were trying, when I had gone to the Self-Reliance Festival, and we were trying to work around my food allergies. Yeah. And I said, well, I can't eat this and this. She goes, oh, you said, oh, well, no problem. We can know how to do it, alpha-gal. And I went, what's that? And so I went and looked it up. But they told me I was allergic to beef, wheat, pork, dairy, and rice. Those are the top 5 things. Yeah. But I think I've always been a little bit allergic to them. But I think stress was my tipping point. Yeah. Getting custody of Kinsey was extremely stressful. In fact, her father, my son, is in prison right now, and her mother. We thought we were going to have her, if it was legal. We were probably going to have her committed. She was trying to kill herself in various ways, and so Kinsey, she was 11, was really struggling with that, and I can imagine. And then, of course, I had a husband who can't function. He can't even decide what he wants to eat for lunch every day. And then about the same time, my parents and my parents lived about 200 miles from me, and they decided they wanted to move to Florida. And I was driving to southern Oklahoma twice a week to help them pack up, but they had already had strokes and they both have dementia. So I was trying to move 2 parents to Florida in the middle of all this too. So I think the stress was just too much for me, and I caved, and I developed severe food allergies, severe eczema. My eyes were swollen shut. I would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, digging myself until I was bleeding, and I have to go take showers in the middle of the night because the blood would just be streaming down my body where I was digging at myself. So yeah. I'm a lot better now.
Yeah. So was it a dietary change that needed to happen to deal with that, or
possibly? You know what? This has been really hard on my ego, but I can't help it. I actually give myself an injection every 2 weeks of Dupixent, and it has been huge for me. And because now I can eat, I keep, because if it's alpha gal, Dr. Kim Berry says we could get over it. And I'm thinking, yes, I'm ready because I love pork. And so I do push my diet a little bit sometimes, but I do pay for it. I break out still.
Yeah.
When I eat wheat, I definitely break out. I break out in sores on my body and stuff. So,
Yeah,
but
and I don't know if it's alpha gal unless you had a test done, but it it mimics it, which is interesting.
yeah,
Uh, and we feed a lot of people here, and I was actually just talking to somebody. I said, every meal that we have has a chicken only option,
yeah.
or we have chicken tucked away somewhere because there's always somebody in the group who got alpha gal or something else, and they just can't have red meat or pork.
And you
Or
know
for
what?
religious reasons don't want pork, and so
Yeah,
we have chicken because chicken feeds alpha gal, it feeds people who don't like red meat, it feeds people, with a lot of things. And so that's something that when you're doing events you just start thinking about it. And I came across it originally because I was ordering pizza for a group way back when at a corporate event, and I emailed everybody, if there's any allergies let me know. And one of my friends said, he's now a friend, he was like, I'm allergic to all red meat, pork is a red meat, and went through the list. And he's a jokester. I was like, are you kidding? He's like, no, I was bit by a tick. And so I learned all about it. And that guy, 20 years after he was bit by a tick, it took him 20 years, he was somewhere where he could not reasonably say no to eating the hamburger that was placed in front of him, which is beef. And he was like resigning himself to going to the hospital later.
yeah,
It was a donor situation where he was asking for money, and he ate it and didn't get sick. And I saw him the next week, and he had this plate with like bacon in a haystack on it. He's like, I can eat red meat again,
yeah,
Nicole. This is great. And he was just like snarfing all the bacon. So
yeah. That's
it,
so
it,
cool.
it can get out of your system if that's the situation. And I know Doc Barry says it takes a year. I think it depends on what happened, how it happened in your physiology. Because I know people where it's taken much longer. I know people who got a little bit of a rash in reaction to, ground venison or something. And then within 3 weeks, that's gone. So it's like their immune system handled it. So it seems like we don't know as much as we think we know about that.
Yeah. And when I was at your place this last spring, your guys that worked in the kitchen, because, I didn't, you always see the videos of people, oh, I can't eat gluten and I can't eat this. And they're really a pain in the butt. And I never want to be a pain in the butt. But your guys in the kitchen were not only provided, but they did it with a genuine smile. And you just have no idea how much that just touched my heart. And I really did appreciate them.
Yeah, they're great. And I mean, I travel with freeze-dried meals because I have weird allergies that is not other people's responsibilities. And I just need to ask the question, does it have this in it? And if the answer is yes, they're like, oh, I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm covered. I just need hot water. I've got a meal with me because it's too hard sometimes to deal with every single. I had somebody here who was allergic to salt. They put salt.
Wow.
They were like, I'm allergic to salt, garlic, pepper, and something else. And I'm like, there is no way I can feed you.
Yeah.
You either I can give you your ticket back, but I can't feed you because that means a singular prepared meal for that person. So I just asked them to be prepared to cover themselves, and they did. They were polite about it. So that was good. But persistence. So you made the decision. You eventually ended up moving out of the camper into the mobile home that you're in now. How has persistence had to keep you going?
Because every once in a while I have to sit down and say, okay, can I accept what this is, or am I just going to have to get up and do it myself? And so I tested for the Air Force years and years ago, and so I lack that mechanical ability too. So when I tested to go into the Air Force, they said you can be anything you want to be except a mechanic, because apparently there's something missing between my brain and my hand to make things work. And so it wasn't just it hasn't been just a matter of making up my mind and doing it. It's been a matter of not only that, but to continue to persist until I can finally get it right and done,
Mm-hmm.
and either that or go backward more. And I was tired of going backward. I didn't want to do that anymore. So yeah, it was just, if you can't hire anybody and you can't get your husband to do it and you're an idiot and you can't figure it out, well, you figure out that you just, you figure out that's going to be bad for a while until you get it right.
Yeah, it's funny how that is, because we come across things. I come across things all the time where I'm like, I have no idea how to do this thing. And YouTube University is not helping me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't wanna, and all of that. And there's nobody who knows how or whatever. And finally, it's just like, well, I'll try it. And then, like, your worst outcome went for many things. You need to assess, is this going to kill me if I screw it up? Then, okay,
yeah,
think about that. But you try it, and it, like, the worst thing that happens is you spent time and maybe a little bit of money trying something and it didn't work. And now you're one step closer because that one thing does not work.
Yeah.
Right? Have you had a couple of those come up in your remodel adventure there?
Not yet. I've had to make some changes, like the wall that I wanted to move that had the vent that went all the way through from below the floor through the ceiling. I had a choice to, the floor is going to have to be replaced anyway, so that wasn't that big a deal. But I didn't want another hole in my roof, so yeah. I had to say, okay, that wall can stay where it is anyway. It was just there for where the toilet is, but the wall where the shower's going, I need to expand it. So mm-hmm. I'm just having to learn to pivot a lot, right? Basically,
right. And how would you recommend, like, if somebody's new to trying new things, how would you recommend they train themselves up mentally to be ready to pivot?
Well, if you think about it, you go through life, you have to pivot all the time anyway, in one form or another. You've always seen the commercials where it's like, Mom, we've got snacks tomorrow at the game. It's like, what? Yeah. Everything is a pivot in your life. You just gotta get the mindset to be prepared and do the best you can to face each challenge as it hit you. God gave me a lot of hard-headedness, which I think got me into a lot of trouble over the years, but it's also given me the tools to see my way through it too.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned before we started that you have a podcast. Tell us about that.
Oh, see, you always get, when you listen to podcasts, I've been a podcast fanatic for a long time now, and you always get these commercials like, you too can start your podcast. It's like, no, I don't want it. What am I going to talk about? I love to talk and stuff, but I don't know that I could actually get on a podcast and say anything worth saying to anybody. And then I was doing chores just a few, maybe 6 months ago, probably not even that. I was doing chores and all of a sudden it hit me. You're going to do a podcast. This is the name of it. And this is what you're going to talk about. And I'm going, oh, okay, I guess.
Okay, so you got to tell us what the podcast is, what the name of it is, and what it's about.
It's called This Grandma's Life is what this podcast is. And I'm enjoying it. I'm already doing some pivoting even with that as I'm learning how to do it. But basically, I read all the time, so every once in a while I like to read excerpts of stuff that I'm reading. I tell you what's going on the farm. I've collected quotes, golly, for 40 years maybe. So I've got a quote that I put out every day. And then because I've always got stories, something has happened to me sometime, somewhere, I always have a story. So that's kind of essentially what my podcast is about. And I'm enjoying it. And I have to admit, I'm kind of doing... it's about Grandpa and what he's doing. No, because Grandpa doesn't do anything. In fact, it's been kind of weird because he's getting in a better place lately. So he can go for weeks without saying a word to us. And then Kinsey, my granddaughter, came to me the other day. She goes, Grandpa fist pumped me and I didn't know what to do. I said, I know. Well, and he wants to talk to me again. I'm going, dude, you haven't talked to me in years. How come you want to talk to me all of a sudden?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I guess, but I've trained myself not to be talked to.
Yeah, it's funny with some of the things he's facing because you shared privately some of those things. Sometimes people do turn around.
Yeah,
and you're like, I don't even know what did it, but it turned around, and here we are. So then you're
Well,
all used to one thing, and it is what it is.
and he comes and goes. I think it's a bipolar issue. So honestly, I am actually in the stage now. It's like, oh, I don't want to get to know this man again because he's going to go away. You know,
Yeah.
so you go through a grieving process when they go away,
Yeah.
and you know it's like they died on you. So you go through a grieving process, but then they keep coming back and then dying again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Farmish Kind of Life says, does Thecia know she is everything I want to be when I grow up? Serious inspiration.
Oh, I don't know. I love her. I really do. I love her books. She's so good to me. I get her
Her newsletter.
the newsletter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, I get that too. News that doesn't suck says, is this the very funny Thecia? I don't know what he means by that.
I don't know. I sometimes I'm funny. I don't know.
Sometimes I'm funny. It just depends.
Yeah.
So this next question is going to go to persistence. Are you ready for it?
I believe so.
Did Thecia finish the skirting yet? Tell us about your skirting adventure.
Oh my goodness.
What is skirting? Why do you want it on a trailer house? And what have you done? Like, tell us about your skirting adventure.
Okay. Well, the first winter we stayed here, there was no skirting at all, and it was just flat cold in this trailer house. And like I mentioned, on the north end, I think it's like a 46-inch gap, and on the south end, it's only like I think it's about 6 or 7 inches gap. So on the north end, where the wind's blowing in all the time, we put up the skirting. It looked beautiful. We did a good job. And then the next wind that comes through, and I am in Oklahoma, and the wind comes through quite a bit, and it was just caving in, just blowing out the skirting. So I don't know. I think it's been 5 or 6 times that I've put it back up, experimented for different ways for bracing behind it and stuff. And I think I finally found a way, and it didn't even take that much lumber. I take a piece of 2x4 and I'm drilling holes in it on the flat side of it. And then I'm cutting rebar into about 8-inch lengths, and I'm pounding it into the ground, and I actually screw the bottom of the skirting into that 2x4 that is anchored to the ground, and I am screwing the top of the skirting in up underneath the edge of it, and it's holding even with 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah. So if I put skirting up in Tennessee, although we do occasionally get winds like that, we don't have winds like that a lot. You get winds where you live. Like you get actual wind all the time.
Yeah.
And so you're up against a totally different thing. And skirting is really important to keep that air from flowing under there, because that's why you were cold that first time.
Yeah.
And so part of why when you put this application in for persistence, and I've watched you hang that skirting like, I don't know, approximately 4,000 times.
I know it.
I'm like, oh, there she is hanging that skirting again. I'm like, well, that lady doesn't give up. And I'm sure like, when you come out and it's off, and you probably say rackin' frackin' off again, darn it, and whatever it is you say when something goes wrong, I'm sure you have those moments where I thought I had it that time and I did not have it that time. But you pick yourself up and you go.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It's been a learning experience. I haven't got, and I can get upset. I can throw a fit as good as anybody. But with this skirting, I think I was looking at it as more of a learning experience. So every time something collapsed on it, I'm going, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do to fix it? And so actually I didn't get as upset as I probably could have.
I'd be so mad. But I get mad. That's okay.
I do too.
I built 3 chicken tractors before Tactical built the 4th one. It's actually lasted 3 years now. And it's made out of PVC. I made a chicken tractor that fell apart and got burned in the middle of my yard. And then I came back and picked up all the nails. And then I built one that was so heavy that it took 3 of us to move it, which rendered it completely useless for why it was developed. But no predators got into that one. And then I took that one, cut it in half, and made a lighter chicken run for it, and used that for years before I was out at John. And this is why it's important, guys, to get out and about. I was out at John Willis's, and I saw his PVC one, and I came home and I said, Tactical, we need to do that, because chicken tractor is important when we're doing meat birds because I want to keep them moving because they poop so much. And so it's way easier to do that than clean up their poop in a coop and run situation. Plus, they get the fresh grass. And I want to be able to move the dang thing. Yeah. So now we have one that he cusses every time he has to move it because it's not super easy to move, but it's movable. I can move it by myself if I want to. He can move it by himself. And so, you know, these things, like I even if the best plans are given to you in a book by Joel Salatin, sometimes it's like that needs to be adapted for my land.
Yeah.
And so you adapt it. And I think part of the homesteading mindset and the self-reliance mindset is learning to adapt and learn from the things you do. Yeah, start with a good model, but you know, if who you're following was putting up skirting in Portland, Oregon, they could just like staple gun it up and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this bathroom, how much longer do you think you got on it?
Well, we've almost got the subflooring back down, which is good because I now have a cat that I didn't want because
free kittens are never free. Okay, go ahead.
No, we knew something was hanging out underneath the house, but I didn't want to close up that hole because I didn't know what it was, and I sure didn't want something to get closed up there not coming out. Yeah. But after we tore the subflooring out, we were just throwing scrap lumber down, and this cat kept coming in the house, and I kept throwing it out, and it kept coming in. So I finally took it to the vet and said, because I couldn't find testicles, and man, $100 later they had to put him under to find out that it was already a neutered cat.
Yeah. Oh
so
no.
Yeah. So I got his rabies shots, and now that we got at least I've got subflooring. It's not. We're having trouble getting it to fit properly yet.
Yeah.
And and part of the reason this is taking me so long because subflooring's heavy and I really can't do it by myself. So I'm having to wait for Tom to help me. And so we've had a couple of arguments about that. Is like Tom, do the measuring and thinking and talking on all the other days. So that on the one Saturday a month I've got you, we can get to work. Well, that's not, this is 2 Saturdays that we've been thinking and talking and not getting things done. So that's what I've got now I've got all my fixtures. I've got the shower. I've got the vanity. I've got everything sitting here. Probably for 6 months it's been sitting in this house. But yeah, once I get the subflooring in, I'm going to have to replace some interior walls. There was a lot of rodent and water damage in this place. So I'm having to do a lot of replacing of that.
Have you stopped the source of the water damage?
Oh yeah. We had to replace a lot of the plumbing. It wasn't PEX. It was some sort of funky.
Yes, that weird funky stuff.
Yeah, that's what we had.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we would, Kinsey would come and say, there's a fine mist being sprayed all over my bathroom. And sure enough, you couldn't even see the crack, but it was just misting, where that stuff was cracking and causing issues. But yeah, we don't have any more plumbing. We don't have any more plumbing leaks as far as I know. Thank God.
Yeah. Have you upgraded the PEX?
Yeah. And most of it. Yeah.
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 That was my solution. I had a similar, so I'm not in a trailer house, as you know, but I had really old plumbing here when I moved in and it was constantly failing. And every time something failed, I'd put PEX in, and then something else would fail and I'd put PEX in. And then one day we had a big failure and it was like, well, screw it. Let's just rip everything out and redo the whole thing with PEX. And that was what was done, which is great because when you hear that my pipes have frozen, which has happened a couple times this winter, it's PEX. Yeah. So I'm not then dealing with PVC, rain, because it gets so brittle, raining down on me or something else.
Yeah.
Skane's girl asks, is your mobile home level?
Yes. The guys who said it did a good job and it is level. I tested it.
Yeah. So you don't have to deal with that mess later. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things that I like to pay for having done right is things put on foundations or proper blocking.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I could learn how to do that, but I'd sure want to practice on something small before trying to do it on something big,
Well, we had to hire somebody because 80 foot long and
Yeah.
16 foot wide. So we had to hire somebody to actually bring this mobile home in. And so, and they set it and they did a good job. And they did the, where hopefully doesn't blow away, anchored down.
Oh, so they anchored it for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to blow away. And I
No.
understand you have a lot of wind there.
Yeah, I do.
Let's talk about your land. So you also have been engaged in homesteading things. Tell us
Yes.
what you got going on there.
Okay, well, the property we're on was actually strip mined back in the 80s for coal. And then the companies came through probably 10 or 15 years later and basically just bulldozed it and smoothed it back out and filled in all the strips, or all the pits. And there are several places around here that still have pits, but it doesn't have a lot of topsoil, a lot of shale, a lot of clay. So Tom decided at one point that he wanted a vineyard. So in 2008, we planted 320 grapevines, but we had an auger and we were drilling down into the ground. And when we came up, there'd be grease rags wrapped around the auger. And there's one section over there that's got some pipes that are heaving up out of the ground. I found a solenoid to a vehicle one time. And I did find out about 5 or 6 years ago that apparently where we planted the vineyard was where the motor pool was, where they worked on the vehicles.
Have you had that soil tested for heavy metals?
No, I haven't, and I'm beginning to wonder if I should, because I'm not a good gardener. But even with the animals I have on here now, I can't get stuff to grow. And sometimes I'm wondering if that's part of why I got sick too, because I was sick when I got sick in 2008 with my joints.
Yeah.
Well, I was so fatigued and my joints hurt so bad. The only thing I do was just crawl and plant a vine, lay down and get up and crawl to the next hole and plant a vine. And I did get over that, but it took me 2 or 3 years to get over that one too. So
yeah, you can get your soil tested, because if it was coal mined, that can be a number of chemicals, and there are things you can do to remediate that.
Okay, I may check into that.
Yeah. And it's not super fun, but hopefully it's not a super fun site that you find. But in your shoes, knowing that history, I would want a test, and I would want to include heavy metals which is not cheap, but
no,
it's good to know.
We have some cool rocks with fossils in it all over the place, so I like those. Yeah.
Autumn says, sometimes you want to get something done correctly or in a reasonable amount of time, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I missed that one. So, yeah. Usually for me, it's not in a reasonable amount of time when I'm doing it myself. We'll just be
absolutely
transparent. It takes me forever to do anything as my bathroom remodel, because I'm not done with my bathroom either yet, Thecia.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No. I still got touch-up paint, which will take an hour. And then a whole bunch of other little things, and the little things take the longest.
Yeah.
And I have a redneck helping me all the time. So
that poor guy, he was trying to talk to me at the Self-Reliance Festival, but it was before I was giving my talk, and I was so nervous I couldn't even hardly talk to him, and I felt so bad.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm sure he took 0 of that on.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was like, well, that's crazy, old lady.
not so much that. He's just like people. Lots of people. Yeah. Okay, so what would your top 3 lessons about persistence be that you want to share with us?
Ooh.
I ask the hard questions sometimes, and that was totally not on your list, so I know I just came at you out of left field.
I think number 1, evaluating. Is it worth being hard-headed about? And if it's not, then figure out what's the next thing that you need to try to do to take care of the situation that you're in the first place. And if it is worth evaluating, then what is the best tactic to go about to implement that? And number 3, get it done.
Yeah. And with that in mind, if there was somebody who you came across who was in your situation when everything melted down, what would you tell them about the future?
Oh, go back to evaluating. Is this what you want. You know, is it worth your time and effort? Think about, what is this going to get you where you want in the future? You know, like when you talk about the my three things, I've been listening to your podcast lately about the my three things, because my three things has been more superficial. You know, yeah, it's getting me more to what I want to do. But what you've been saying is making me actually make it a little bit deeper. So you've got to evaluate. You've got to sit back and think, what as I age, I'm 60 years old now, and it's been funny. I've been listening to all you guys talk about how you're getting to 50 and all that other stuff. And that was a pivot point for me also. But at 60, I am now going, okay, I'm trying to develop a life, but how much longer am I going to be able to lift 50-pound bags of feed? How much longer am I going to be able to climb stairs? And I'm working real hard to do that for hopefully another 30 years. But I've got to be realistic too, you know. So everything's an evaluation. What do you want in the long run? What do you want for your future? What is it going to do to get you to there, and not hurt anybody else in the process? You know, you don't. You want to take care of you and yours, but you don't want to hurt anyone either.
Yeah, that makes sense. At the end of your videos and podcasts, you say live until you die.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, there's several things on that. Number one, I think it started by watching my husband. He goes to work every day. He's very good about going to work every day. But then he sits down and he will watch television until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And he just nothing. I don't know how much time he spends watching television. And I couldn't do that. And then when the pandemic happened and I saw so many people just bowing out of life, they were afraid. My 40-year class reunion was coming up, and somebody goes, "Oh, I would really love to come, but I think I just can't risk it." And I thought, guys, this is it. And then plus the Jack Spirko thing again, that dash, on your tombstone, the day that you're born and the day that you die, that dash is all we've got. It's all we've got. And when I meet the Lord, I don't want to say, hey, the Sooners did great in such and such year, and that's all I did in my life was keep track of what's going on with the Kardashians or whatever's going on now. I did not want to meet the Lord and say and admit that I wasted my life. I'm willing to go to him and say, man, I screwed up a lot and I'm sorry, but at least I did. You know, I want to be able to live my life, and I want to encourage other people to live a life. There's a lot of people my age that have already basically given up on life and on all kinds of medications, and they're having trouble functioning, and I don't know, can't hardly get around, and it kind of hurts my heart. And I want to see people live. I want to see people be happy to the best of their ability, to function to the best of their ability, to be a part of life, because this is all we got.
Yeah, it's funny how the older you get, the more you value that part of life, the living part of life. You're like, wait a minute, that rock wall I got to climb up out there, I might not be able to do that in my 90s as easily.
Yeah, and I mean, also
shocking to think that, but that's when. So then, when you make plans for projects, you're like, okay, I need to think about what this is like in 20 years, not just today.
Yeah.
Or 50 years. Yeah.
And I don't know if you notice, but the older you get, I'm getting to the point. It's kind of like the roll of toilet paper. When the more it gets to the end, the faster the roll goes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, how do people find your podcast and get in touch with you?
Okay. I've got Ken Ash has been working on my. I've got a website. It's called grandmashomestead.farm, and I'm trying to get where I can get to working on that one. So I do have that website. My YouTube channel, I just changed the name of it. I was wanting to do it earlier. I was Ellis Family Farms for several years, and now I am Grandma's Homestead. I love it. I love that new. I love the new name. I love everything about that. So Grandma's Homestead is my YouTube channel. I've got another little side YouTube channel called Farm Animal Life. And the only thing I'm doing with that is I stick a camera in a brooder or in with the pigs or something like that. And every once in a while I'll post a video on that channel. And then I've got on For my podcast, I started out on YouTube, This Grandma's live podcast, and I was doing it all through them. But I finally recently figured out how to put it on iTunes and Stitcher and all them. So, so all the videos on my YouTube channel, I'm slowly uploading them onto iTunes a little at a time, and I'll get caught up, and I should be up to date on that pretty soon too. I'm learning. I got a long ways to go with learning. I've been having some computer problems lately, and it's amazing how long it takes me to figure some of this stuff out, but I'm getting there.
It is what it is, man. Sometimes things take a while. So guys who listen to the audio podcast, This Grandma's Life podcast on your podcast catcher, just check her out. And Thecia, thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.